That's Lizzie Maximus, one of the young talent working for EPW, Explosive Pro Wrestling here in Perth. She's a firecracker, brimming with energy and enthusiasm, but you would never guess that behind the workout gear, she's more reserved and shy, and she credits wrestling for helping her get out of her shell. She's one of the young women I talked to today about why they love the art of wrestling, how they hope the next generation will change up the industry, and just how a 19-year-old girl became a fluoro-obsessed aerobics instructor from the 80s. Hello, I'm Holly, coming to you from the lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people, and this is episode 2 of The Ladies Who Punch, a 3-part podcast series about women's wrestling. Today, we are talking to the next generation, some of the local talent that is currently working the circuit here in Australia, about why they got into wrestling and what they hope to change in the industry.
You don't like sports entertainment, Wayne?
I got a wee bit of time for sports entertainment.
I'm Lizzie Maximus in ring, and I'm an 80s. I'm an 80s like retro aerobics persona.
Lizzie is 19. She debuted back in June, so she's had a couple of matches so far, but the majority of her time spent in EPW has been spent in the school, learning the trade. And that's not just learning how to throw a punch or do a kick. It's learning how to take bumps, learning how to cut promos, which is speaking to the audience. It's learning character work. Everything that you see from a person's ring attire to the way they speak to the way that they run into the ring is taught in a wrestling school.
I was the only girl trainee that was under 16 years old, basically.
And you may be wondering why someone who clearly wasn't alive in the 80s plays an 80s aerobics instructor, but they've sorted that out.
I was like, wait, we need a story, because it doesn't make sense if I'm 19 years old and being like an 80s character. So the whole thing is basically I've just time traveled.
That's not even the weirdest gimmick within EPW. I was told of a character who is an evil phys ed teacher whose entrance music was the beep test, that automated running test you had to do in high school, running between 2 points in between beeps. He enters the ring to that sound.
So my name is Stella Nix and I am the teacher.
That's Stella Nix, another West Australian professional wrestler who, the night before our interview, won her first championship and won the Australian Women's Champion for Southern Territory Wrestling.
My first title win, which was pretty exciting. Excited I would be in that moment until the bell rang and ended the match. And I was like, oh, this is really, really cool.
Both Lizzie and Stella have done quite a fair few intergender tag team matches, so that's a women's tag team fighting a men's tag team. Not necessarily out of want, but because there's no other women's tag teams to wrestle. It's either Lizzie fights Stella or Lizzie and Stella fight against the boys. There's no other option for them to fight.
I remember seeing a statistic one time that there was less than 50 female wrestlers in Australia. And so when there's those kind of numbers, there's just not... You see matches too repetitive because you've only got the same pool of women having to fight each other.
Like I will say, there's been training sessions where I've been the only girl, multiple times.
Ooh, it is what it is. It's really hard, I think, to convince a lot of the girls to do it. I think someone who's unfamiliar with what it entails, but I've always seen it as just a type of performing arts. Whereas sometimes from the outside it can just look like it's this physical, hard thing. But I've always seen it as I get to, put hair and makeup, dress up, put sparkly outfits on and wrestle. But I think we have got a few more girls now that are sticking around. When I first started training, I was the only one. So for about a year, it was just me.
The solution? Well, Lizzie and Stella both say to come on down to what got them both into wrestling, and that's trying out at an open day. Most wrestling schools, including EPW, run open days throughout the year, and quite often than not, you will see them doing spots at events like the Perth Royal Show or various different comic conventions. It's events like these that wrestling schools have to rely on to bring new people into the scene. But a lot of people are hoping that the current boom of women's wrestling seen on television and social media means that wrestling schools don't have to rely solely on these open days to get new people into the art form. Thank you for listening to episode 2 of The Ladies Who Punch. A big thank you to Lizzie Maximus and Stella Nix of Explosive Pro Wrestling. They were wonderful. Please go support them at local shows. They are phenomenal upcoming talent. The 3rd episode will be solely a dedication to a living legend of the Australian wrestling scene. A story so good, it deserves its entire full episode. I'll see you in the next one.